Hello and welcome to today's webinar on why document automation is a no-brainer for commercial banking. I'm Greg Duncan, I'm Senior Marketing Manager here at HotDocs. During the panel, just a bit of housekeeping, during the session, you'll see a panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to ask any questions that you want during this presentation and we will answer them all at the end. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to my colleague, Graham Penman. Graham is our SVP of Global Services here at HotDocs, and he works with a number of global banks to successfully implement and integrate HotDocs into their organisation. Over to you, Graham.
Thanks very much, Greg. So I hope you're all having a good day today. It's a great part of my job to be able to speak to lots of different people in lots of different parts of organizations about document assembly, which is what we do as a business, and about how it can impact their business processes and make a real difference within their organization. And today's topic, looking at document automation in commercial banking, I want to just go through a few different pieces of experience and background as to how we could help you and how document automation and technology in general can be used within this space. And this agenda slide during this webinar, you will learn, I don't want this to be a teaching thing, this is more of a conversation and an overview of the experience that we've had about how we can reduce operational risks associated with inaccurate data, leading to smarter process and business improvement overall within different processes, ensuring that legal obligations and variable clauses and terms are met within your documentation as you look to produce different types of documents for different purposes. How do you ensure that they're accurate? Promoting standardized cross-company documentation, fitting in with your strategy for digital or business transformation, and then obviously eliminating errors associated with manual input of customer data. Those are the kind of key overviews that we're going to be looking at as we go through this webinar. As Greg said, there is a panel for asking questions. Love to have them, and we will answer those questions at the very end. So anything that I say you want to ask a question on, or any other things, just put them in there and we will get to them very soon. So what's the current landscape in banking? And in terms of technology, and specifically around document automation, well, it's continually evolving. We're looking, as we look out in the banking sector, we see a more seamless automated experience for employees and customers. We work with many different parts of banks, including commercial lending, and we're seeing an uptake in technology that absolutely automates the experience for both the internal employees who are creating documents and their customers. And we've seen a significant growth within specifically artificial intelligence. That area of reviewing contracts and documents that you already have, being able to extract that information out and then use it for business intelligence, or use that to feed into your process, your governance processes. And we've been working with a lot of tools within that area, and we see that being picked up more and more within the lending space and within banks. And we see more and more and the challenger banks that are coming through, that they have this technology baked in when they start. So they've built their entire bank on these kind of technologies. A significant portion of my time and my team's time is looking at integrating complementary technology tools together. So we're moving from the siloed-based technology providers within our large organizations, where you have point solutions, solutions that only work for a certain process or type of banking. And we're seeing more strategic solutions being brought in that get pulled together to create a more strategic solution. So we're doing a lot of transformational programs to combine and consolidate systems and to use strategic overview, and HotDocs is being chosen in a large number of these organizations and some of the world's largest banks to be the strategic provider of document automation technology. We're seeing a big move to cloud. If you'd asked me a couple of years ago whether or not we would be seeing such an uptake and moving banks especially into a cloud environment, I would have said no, I don't see us doing that too quickly. But over the last couple of years, we've seen a massive uptake in cloud technology. These barriers that have been put up are being brought down, And people are realizing that actually, even if we do move data into the cloud, the fact that cloud providers, their reputations are on the line, we put so much security into our cloud platforms to make sure your data is secure, to make sure that we have uptime for all your solutions, that you're not left with a solution that you can't use. And it's making a huge impact on the banking sector. And banks are combining risk and compliance with digital and business transformation. A few weeks back, I did a webinar on what digital transformation is and what it means to different people. And we're involved in many digital and business transformation projects, which involve lots of data being supplied to different systems, and then that data being able to be used for risk management and governance within your organization. And HotDocs is a part of that. When we're creating documents, there's so much valuable data within those documents, and we can expose that data to make auditing, make these compliance regulations easier to attain and adhere to. And over the last 10, 15 years, there's been a huge uptake and a huge push with ever-tightening regulatory requirements from the governing bodies. Every so often something happens within the industry and new legislation is brought in place in order to correct potential failings or protect different areas of banking. And we are working with many organizations to be able to implement document automation solutions that meet the needs of those regulations within the governing bodies that oversee the banking sectors in various different countries. And we see a lot of pains and frustrations in the production of documents within banks. Let's not get away from it. Document production is something that happens a lot. We've moved into a digital world where everything's digitized, but documents are still being produced. Whether that's in an electronic format in Word, we're seeing less and less of paper copies being created, but documents, PDFs, Word documents, HTML documents are still being created to display contractual information. And there are a lot of pains with creating documents in many organizations. We have a big problem with people who want to create a legal document or a loan document using wrong or outdated base documents. So in your organization, when you go to create a new loan document, people are still going to find the last copy they did of a similar document for another customer and using that as the base. And people are using wrong and outdated templates that may have the wrong clauses, the wrong data, maybe one from a previous month that the regulations have changed and need to have different wording within it. And there's huge cost associated with and high error rates with manual input as well into documents. If you think of a very manual process of creating a document where you're copying, pasting different clauses, paragraphs, data, you're going into a spreadsheet, taking the name, pasting it into the document, there's a lot of cost involved in manually creating documents, and it also comes with the high error rate of somebody getting something wrong from within the manual process and manual input. The next thing we have is brand inconsistency. My marketing team absolutely hate when a document goes out from HotDocs with the wrong branding on it, the wrong styling, the formatting, the wrong logo. And this happens across an organization. If you imagine a large bank producing millions of documents, millions and millions of documents per year, how do you make sure that your brand consistency is right, that everything that your customer gets, everything that you produce is on brand and on point with what your strategy is for your style palettes, your colors, your fonts, your table of contents is all standardized? How do you manage issues across geographies or languages in achieving document consistency? And what I mean by that is, how do you, if you've got thousands of people within an organization creating documents, how do you ensure that in every single country and every single language you produce them in, you have consistency? Yes, there will be differences in the clauses you need to put with the geographical locations, but how do you ensure that there is some form of standard across the languages and geographies that your organization covers? And about time constraints, we were working with a large bank in South Africa, and before HotDocs, they were producing, say, 5 or 6 documents per person per day in that organization. And people were getting really frustrated because it was very repetitive and they weren't getting an awful lot done. It was a very manual process. And they brought HotDocs in, to help with the automation of creating the documents. And they found that within a very short space of time, they were now producing 20 to 25 documents per day. And the people who were producing them were a lot more efficient, and they were a lot happier with the way that the documents were coming out, because they were having time constraints put on them by the leadership of the organization to produce these documents, but they just couldn't get it done quick enough. But they managed to bring HotDocs in and then create the documents in a more efficient manner. So it's all to do with compliance and risk. Document automation and the tool we have is all to do with compliance and risk. How do you make sure the documents you produce are accurate? They contain all the right style and the right format, but more importantly, the right content, the right wording to make them accurate to what you need to put them in. All the numbers that go in are formatted correctly, all the dates that go in have the right formats and the right parts of the document, the right stylings applied, the italics are applied. How do you make sure that that is all standardized and put into the documents that are produced? And how do you make sure your documents are agile and maintainable? And what I mean by that is, if you make a change to a clause that's in all your documents, how do you make sure that you can make that change in one place and have that propagated throughout all the documents that are produced from that point onwards and make them accessible and comprehensive? How do you make sure they're standardized? I've talked about this a lot. Cross-references, table of contents, the branding, the headers and footers. If you make a change to some of your addresses, how do you make sure that that is propagated out throughout your content? How do you make sure you have the right logos in the right place? And you only have to make that change in one place. We had an organization, again, another bank, who changed their logo maybe once or twice a year and changed the size of something within their logo depending on the economy. Well, if you have to change that a few times a year in your organization across all your documents, in a mammoth project. But when HotDocs, they implemented HotDocs, that became one change in one place. And it was very efficient to change that process. And you could guarantee that the rest of the organization would have the correct branding in the documents. And how do you take the perceived overhead of compliance and risk, but actually make compliance and risk and standardization, but actually make the process more efficient to produce documents? So what are the benefits of document automation? Well, this automated approach can help banks reduce the operational risk associated with inaccurate data. So as you produce the documents, you can ensure that there's validation on the data, so that when documents are being produced, you have the right numbers going into the document. You can't enter the wrong information. You can hook it up to your other internal systems that have all your golden source of data, that one source of truth for your data, and make sure that that gets into the document rather than anything else. So that manual input can go away. Yes, you may have some manual input into some sophisticated lending documents and facility agreements. However, a lot of the standard data that you have is currently within other CRM systems and your customer records that you can pull in, and it's just the additional information you need to put in to then produce the document that's manually entered. You can have smarter processes. So I mentioned that very manual process of creating a document. You find another document you produced similar before, you take a copy of it, you rename it, you then go through it, find the changeable bits of information, you copy and paste from other documents to finally build that agreement. Well, you can adopt smarter processes and you can improve customer service. Instead of a document taking 3 to 5 days to come out to a customer, you can produce it within a matter of minutes and know that it's accurate. Know that it has all the right information, the right clauses according to the business rules that you need to have in there, and you can get that out to the customer. We live in a world where we don't want to wait for the documents for something to happen to be able to get these things out from a business. We want that document instantly. We want the services we get provided to be delivered instantly, and HotDocs can help produce that and help banks to be able to produce those documents smartly, accurately, and efficiently. So ensuring that legal obligations and variable terms are met promote that standardized cross-company documentation and perfectly fit in with your strategy for digital transformation and continual business improvement. We're working with a lot of banking organizations and financial institutions who are providing digitalized services to their customers. Lots of client portals where customers can go in, they can apply for services and instantly get the contracts and the documents that they need to potentially digitally sign as well instantly. So they go on, they fill in the services they want, they click submit, that goes into the system in the back end, goes off to Experian, goes off to the credit rating agencies, they return whether they've been accepted for the service or not. And then when they need to sign a document, HotDocs can produce that document. Then the document can be sent off to an e-signature tool to then be signed instantly. So that customer experience, that customer onboarding can all be handled and all the documents can be produced by HotDocs in the background. So a quick example of who we've worked with on these kind of projects. Well, RBS is one of our largest customers, and they had a real problem with document quality, risk, and efficiency. So they had a very manual process to be able to create their documents. And they have over 12,000 users of HotDocs now. We've been working with them for over 15 years. And with HotDocs, they took away the centralized document creation team. They had a document creation team in the back end who produced all the letters and agreements for them. And they decided with HotDocs that HotDocs was able to show an interview, a question and answer session that captured all the information required to produce either very simple or some very sophisticated lending agreements. And instead of that internal team and group of people creating the documents for relationship managers, for those out in the field who are selling services to the customers, they decided that because of the validation and the business rules that could be put in place, the document automation and the creation of these documents could be given out to the masses. So they have over 12,000 users who create documents on a regular basis with no centralized function, apart from the team who validates that all the templates are absolutely correct. And we integrate it with their workflow system. They have IBM BPM, it's integrated with that, and it's for the corporate and commercial lending agreements across RBS, NatWest, and Ulster Bank, the three brands that they have. And again, a lot of the documentation is exactly the same as each other, except it's just the branding and the styling that's slightly different in between each of them, the brands, and that's all managed through HotDocs. And as I say, that process that we have with RBS is across the lending side of the business. So online intelligent forms that can be filled out by either somebody internal or a customer, you can collect all the information you need to be able to offer them a service or create the documents for that service. And then all that data can go into the analysis and sanctioning process, where internal people can review that data. It can go into workflow systems, it can go for validation. And then at some point during the lending process, some documents need to be produced. So at that point, it makes a call out to HotDocs, and we produce all the relevant documentation required for that product or service. And then it can go into the workflow for signature and out to the customer. And then later on, all that data that was collected through the document generation process can then be used for problem management. All that data that they have collected about that facility, that loan, can then be used for management information and can be used to populate other documents that are required for those services at a later date. So all that information has been captured and collected. And we've been helping another large global bank to be able to produce their documents more quickly and efficiently. So we've been working with this bank on a kind of global standardization of multilingual agreements. This bank is rolling out HotDocs to 43 countries worldwide. I think there's about 14 or 15 different languages those documents have to be produced in. And they're getting 100% accuracy on the documents that they're now producing and a 96% increase in efficiency throughout their teams. And they have a distributed model. They have the data segregated out into different areas. So Germany has their data that they put into their documents stored in Germany. Mexico can have it in Mexico. Hong Kong can have it stored in Hong Kong. The UK can have it in the UK. It's a distributed system that has all the data stored in the right places according to the agreements that they're allowed with their data protection laws. And they're producing facility and security agreements. And a very conservative estimate of how much they're saving per year is around about $10 million from this system. So our technology itself, how does it all fit together? Well, we have our core technology. We assemble documents. We create documents as part of our technology, and we have lots of services on top of them that allow you to integrate our technology with other best-of-breed systems. So you've got things like Pega Workflow, you've got IBM BPM, K2, you've got your Microsoft technologies like Dynamics for your CRM, SharePoint for storage, and other things that provides, DocuSign for e-signatures, and more we're being integrated with big data tools and AI tools for data analysis, things like Kira or Leverton that can scan documents, pull them out and produce other documents from them, and other things like Adobe Sign and Alfresco as well. But we are the document assembly engine that can fit into lots of different systems and at the touch of a button, produce documents based on the data you have and the templates that we provide. So how does HotDocs actually work? So I've talked a lot in high level about how document automation can be used within banking, but how does our technology actually work? Well, there's two phases to document automation. Phase one, you need to be able to create a template. And that's very simple. What we do is we provide tools to those who understand your documents the best, the content authors, those who manage and know your content, to be able to take a document, either in Word or PDF. We provide them a tool that lets them find all the changeable bits of information and the business rules and insert HotDocs placeholders in their place. So it's a very intuitive tool. You find the changeable bits of information from a current document you have, you insert the placeholders and the business rules into the template. Then the next time somebody goes to produce a document, instead of going into Word or going to the bottom drawer, going to your document management system to find a similar document you've used before, HotDocs automatically builds an interactive questionnaire based on the business rules and the placeholders within that document, the data points. And the user fills out that interview, that question and answer session, as the answer questions appear and disappear depending on the business rules within that template. Or we go and get data from a line of business system that you have. And then once we've captured all that information, we then send it into our intelligent document assembly tool, and then out pops a document or a suite of related documents. So we don't just produce one document, we can produce multiple documents from one data set. So if you're doing client onboarding, customer onboarding, potentially there's 3 or 4 different documents you need to produce for them. And we can produce all of those from that one data set. And then we save all that data for later. So all that data that we have and we've produced and we've processed, we can then save it to be used on other documents as well, or we can pass it back into your lending process, into your workflow, into your CRM once we've collected it all. So who are we as a business? Well, we've got well over 1 million users worldwide, over 11,500 customers, and we've been doing this for a long, long time. We're the pioneer and global market leader, over 20 years, and we're currently deployed in over 60 countries with offices in the UK and the US. We've got over 60 global partners as well. And we're proven technology. We've been doing this with many large organizations, including banking and finance, legal and insurance. So 60% of the market share in legal, 4 of the 5 top global banks, excluding Chinese banks, and 8 of the top 15 insurance companies. And we're a Microsoft Gold partner and Gartner certified us as a cool vendor and best of breed system as well. And we're used and trusted by some of the world's largest brands. These are some of the organizations that we're allowed to say who we work with, people like RBS, JP Morgan, JT Banca, Heineken, Department of Justice, and a few of the other law firms in there as well. But we work with a huge amount of others that we can't name on this slide. And if you'd like to find out more of what we're doing with other customers, it would be great for you to get in touch and we can share some of the exciting things that we're doing with them. But that is it. We're hoping to do kind of half an hour. We're here 25 minutes into this webinar. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview as to what we do as a business and who we work with, and a bit about how we fit into banking and a bit about our technology. And as I said, hopefully there's some questions that have come in that I can answer just now. So I'm going to hand back over to Greg, and he will be able to take us through the next part of the webinar.
Thank you very much, Graham. So yeah, I hope that's been an enjoyable few slides there for all of you that have attended today. I'd like to now welcome you to ask any questions that you may have during that have popped up during the session. I know a couple have come through, so I'll kick things off here. Someone's asked, we create documents in many different languages. Which languages does HotDocs work with? Graham?
Okay, so HotDocs works with pretty much any language that Microsoft Word supports. So we're currently doing projects including languages such as Arabic, right to left, Hebrew, Chinese, so Cantonese, Mandarin, and we are working obviously with English, European languages, pretty much any language that's supported by Microsoft Word, we support as well.
Okay, excellent. And another performance-related one here. What sort of volume I presume means in terms of documents, what sort of volume can HotDocs handle? And in brackets it says, we have hundreds of different document types. Yeah, common scenario there.
So we have many different large organizations producing anything from actually different organizational size, from 1 or 2 people who produce 5 or 6 documents a month, all the way to some large financial institutions who produce upwards of 1 million documents per month on our system, either automated or all through the interview process, or automated with batch processing, things like that.
Okay, thanks, Graham. We've got another one here. Can you explain how HotDocs can be integrated with SharePoint?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the interview process within HotDocs for collecting information. So if you want to show like a web form for somebody to fill out some information, that can be embedded within SharePoint. So if you've got a SharePoint site that you want to embed that into, you could embed that. And also the other part of assembling the document, that can also be a part of SharePoint as well. So when you click finish or you click submit on that questionnaire, you can then pass that information into HotDocs. We can assemble the document, and then we can push it back into SharePoint as well. So we could upload it to a document list, a document library, or some other system as well. So that whole process could be fully embedded within SharePoint. We could also take data out of SharePoint as well. So if you've got data in document lists that you want to pull out, we could pull that out and put it into the document as well.
Excellent. And one more has just popped up. Is there any tool for delegation of signature?
Interesting. So we work with people like DocuSign, Adobe Sign for e-signature. So what happens within that integration is we delegate that responsibility off to that tool. So during the interview process, we capture all the data required to know who the signatories are for this document. And when we send that document over to the e-signature tool, we tell it who the signatories are and in what order they need to sign. And then the signature tool then handles that. So it's a kind of joint effort between our tool and our technology and the e-signature technology in question. But that is exactly the use case that many of our customers have with e-signature tools.
Right, I think that's all the questions for today. But as Graham mentioned, there's our email address on screen there. If you'd like to schedule a more tailored demonstration, then we'd be happy to organise that with our team. So once again, I hope you've enjoyed the webinar and it's shone some light on the benefits of document automation in banking. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.